let's talk about resiliency. We know life happens to all of us. It's not a matter of if something's going to happen, it's a matter of when something's going to happen. And so just imagine with me for a moment here that you have chosen to live the safest life absolutely possible. And to do that, you've decided you're going to stay in your home all the time. And so you don't go crazy. You're going to watch TV all day, all night, all the time. I mean, what safer environment could you possibly have than that? What could go wrong? What if the power went out? What if cable went out? What are you going to do? How are you going to respond? What happens now? After all, your best friend died, otherwise known as the TV. What are you going to do? Now, I know you guys are business owners, and that scenario is probably the most unrealistic thing ever because you guys have a million things going on all the time. But stick with me in that scenario for a moment. So keep that in mind. So as using that scenario, as you're going along and everything is fine and dandy and super safe, and then your best friend dies, the TV. And how far down you go on this line graph and how long you stay down there. And then do you jump back up higher to where you were prior, or do you jump to slightly where you were? This line and the variation and how long you stay down, how far you come up or you bounce, that's resiliency. That's a simple definition of what resiliency is. And when you bounce back up higher than where you started before life happened, that difference is called growth. Now, resiliency isn't something that just automatically happens. Resiliency is about preparation, because if you're going along and you haven't done any preparing on resiliency, you're going to stay down further and longer while you are building those skills. And preparation and skills, by definition, are saying resiliency is something that can be learned. So if you're seeing that your resiliency isn't where you want it to be able to bounce back when life happens, regardless how big or small of an issue that it may be, it's something you can learn. And it's something that's contagious and that is passed on to others. Your family, your friends, your kids, your organization, your company culture, your coworkers, your clients, it's passed on to them without even knowing it. So we're going to talk about two main topics. Resiliency is a big topic. I'm giving you droplets out of the fire hose as opposed to turning it on full blast, because my hope is that you'll be able to take action from today to be able to start implementing things. So when we touch base again next week, as far as mindset goes, you can give me some of your wins, or maybe even tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. So I'm going to show you two lists. List A and list B. There's going to be 10 things in each of those lists. So on a piece of paper on your computer, write list A, list B. And then when I mention something on one of these lists that you're able to identify with, go ahead, put up a finger. We're not going to see it, any fingers, or make a tick mark and say, where are you at on list A? Are you 10 out of 10? Are you 5 out of 10? Are you 1 out of 10? So you ready? Let's go. List A. Do you have passive behaviors at times? Do you avoid people and situations? Are you disengaged when you are actively involved? Do you blame yourself? Are you isolating yourself socially? Do you drink a little too much or eat a little too much? Do you have thoughts of suicide? Do you disassociate? Are you a little depressed? A lot depressed? Do you have a little bit of anxieties or a lot of anxieties? That's list A. So tally up list A, number you identified with. All right, let's jump over to list B. Are you active? Do you feel supported socially? Are you able to think of things when they happen in life in a positive way? Are you able to vent in a healthy way and not just a continuous random of venting? Do you know others, and are you known by others? Are your connections intimate connections? Are you able to be present with people and situations and events that you're attending? Do you know your own values and boundaries? Are you practicing stress management tools? And are you able to solve problems? Tally those up for list A or for list B. So now you should have a number for list A and a number for list B. These are all coping strategies. All of these are coping strategies. And coping strategies we obtain by our sphere of influence at a very young age. And it continues as we grow. At a young age, it's generally our families. From there, we get into school, and now we have our teachers and our friends are our sphere of influence on how we learn our coping strategies. And as we get older, now we spend a lot of time at work. And so now our sphere of influence is work. So as you've identified, the list A and B, according to scientific studies, not Tanya, but scientific studies, list A are negative coping strategies. List B are positive coping strategies. And what the studies have found is that positive coping strategies allows you to be more resilient. It allows you to bounce up. You don't go down as far and you don't stay down there. You bounce equally or you grow and bounce higher. So if your numbers are higher on list A than they are on list B, you can change that. Remember, resiliency is something that you can learn. And so you can actively be aware and say, wow, I want to be able to bounce up. I want to be the best me faster and more often. And in order to do that, switch over to some positive behaviors. Some of that just may be the awareness of, dang, I'm doing some of these things that aren't serving me super well. How do I bounce back up faster? So there's the awareness. If you're 50-50 and you still want to move over to more of the positive list B, then you can go ahead and actively do that. You can ask people to help you be accountable for those things and say, when I start doing some of these behaviors, can you remind me to, hey, you know, where are some of your positive coping strategies? So here's a list of things to do. So that is our first topic around resiliency, our coping strategies to be the best you. The second topic are knowing your triggers. Triggers, what are triggers? They often have a negative connotation to them. Triggers are anything that get you off your game. There's those little things that make you go, or those things that you may have an eye roll on, or that just somewhat irritate you, or that you think twice about. Knowing what your triggers are and knowing when to escalate them are critical to being resilient and being your best self. So for me, I didn't always necessarily know when I was triggered. I wasn't exactly sure. And so here's some things, some additional things to know if I'm even triggered. It's when you're a little more short than you normally are. You're irritated. You might be a little more antsy. You may have physical signs. You may have some tension in your head, or you get a headache, or there's additional pressure there that usually isn't there. You may feel tension in your voice, or things are just not coming through. You're just stumbling over your words like crazy today. Or it may feel heaviness in your chest. It may be a gut feeling, or it may be your stomach. Now, you may have some physical issues going on in all of those areas. And if you do, then that may be a reason, but always take a second look at it and saying, am I triggered by something? It may be a trigger, or it may just be gas or an upset stomach. I don't know, but it could be various possibilities. So really take a look at, how do I know I'm triggered? The next thing is explore those triggers. As opposed to poo-pooing them aside or disassociating or ignoring them. It is really engaging in, okay, I'm feeling something. It may be a trigger. When did I feel this? When did I start feeling this way? Wow, it was about 2 hours ago. Go back in your day. What was going on 2-3 hours ago? Oh, I had a conversation with so-and-so and so-and-so. Huh, or there was an email that came through. Replay what was going on and see if there's a thing that kind of goes, was it a phrase somebody said? Was it a word? Is it a tone? Is it an eye roll? Explore when it happened and what that trigger was. And then it's taking a look at, how am I feeling about that particular trigger? It could be a happy trigger, but generally triggers are not the happy ones that we want to worry about, but you can still celebrate those. So it's taking a look and saying, how do I feel? And the triggers, for me, feelings was one of the hardest things. And Hugh, I think we've got a link for a list of feelings. I literally had to print out a list of feelings to understand what I was feeling, because oftentimes I wasn't in tune with that. And once you're able to identify that, now you can take some action around it. So the other piece of knowing your triggers is, what is the story you're telling yourself around those triggers? For example, words are just words. Eye rolls are just eye rolls, and phrases are just phrases. Tones are just tones, until we put energy around them and negative connotation around them. We make up stories in our heads all the time. And these stories may come back from the coping strategies that we grew up with, the sphere of influence, and some of our experience. And say, is that a reality right now in this particular situation? Or is this past behavior and assumptions and stories that are no longer serving me right now for this day and for this situation? So that's exploring your triggers. The next is escalating your triggers. What am I going to do about these things? Do I need to reach out for help and assistance on this particular trigger? And help is usually not one of those things, especially business owners, that we are very fond of. Although, when you think about it, what is the honor of not being at your best and staying not at your best, as opposed to bouncing up? When it comes to resiliency, the faster you can be the best you and top performing at your top level, it's worth reaching out. Tiger Woods, one of the best. He has a swing coach. That's all this one coach does, is a swing coach. And people say, Tiger, you're the best. Why do you have a swing coach? And he says, because sometimes you can't see your own swing. And that's the same with your triggers. Sometimes you can't objectively look at that conversation or understand what those triggers are. So reaching out for assistance is going to help you bounce back and is a great tool. The next thing is, let's create some successes. Remember when we were talking about that line graph? If you don't use and you aren't resilient and you're not practicing your resiliency, the more often life happens, which I don't know about you, but it seems to happen more often than not, and it's something I embrace. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And so make another success. Take action. And this action could be something like having a difficult conversation with somebody. And we'll discuss that in a couple of weeks. It may be having tools and skills and strategies. And around marketing, Hugh's going to help you out with some of those tools and skills and strategies. And if you're using new tools, skills, and strategies, now it could be scary. And so is that a trigger? And is that holding you back? And now what can you do to make those things more successful as far as your mindset goes? It may be, I need to be heard. I don't feel like I'm being heard with this person, which may lead to a difficult conversation. It may be something as easy as awareness, being aware of your trigger and now doing something with that awareness is also an action. It doesn't always involve other people. It can also just involve yourself. So these are some of our triggers. Like I said, I'm giving you little small droplets out of the water hose as opposed to putting it on full blast. So we've talked about our coping strategies and our triggers. And the way they fall into being resilient is really how quickly can you bounce up? How quickly can you bounce back? And when I say you, I'm talking you individually and the larger you. You as in your business, your company culture, your friends and family, your children, and that sphere of people that you influence, your clients, your vendors, your employees. It's contagious, it's a learned skill, and it's something that you need to prepare for so you have that ability to bounce back faster. So I have a question for you. What is it costing you to not be resilient? What is that cost of the larger you of not being resilient?